Do you know the 14 traits of successful chiropractors? We've interviewed some of the top chiropractors in the industry and have identified the common traits that they all share. Jump on over to www.chirobusinessmojo.com to get your free report today.
Welcome to the Chiro Business Mojo podcast, where we deconstruct the methods, marketing, and mindset of successful business people and chiropractors from around the world. And now your host, Dr. Richard Day.
Yes, I am Dr. Richard Day, and this is the Chiro Business Mojo podcast. Thanks so much for joining us once again. Well, by now, you've probably heard of the unfortunate passing of the model Katie May and the possible link between her untimely death and chiropractic. Today, joining us on the show is Dr. Shoshany, who holds a doctorate degree from Life University and is currently the clinic director of chiropractic in New York. He's been a guest on the Dr. Oz show 9 times and most recently appeared to discuss the unfortunate death of Katie May and any role that chiropractic may have played in her demise. Welcome, Dr. Shoshany.
Hi there.
Briefly give us an overview of your journey as a chiropractor.
I've been practicing for over 20 years in Manhattan specifically. It's been awesome. I'm still in practice, and I work 4 to 5 days a week. As far as my journey, I went to Life Chiropractic and graduated in 1996, and it's been busy ever since, so it's been fun.
So what made you decide to get into chiropractic to begin with?
I had really bad irritable bowel syndrome as a kid and went through the medical model of taking pills and doing barium enemas and doing the whole medical route. A buddy of mine recommended I visit his chiropractor, and he's an old Italian guy, and, checked my back out, did a couple of adjustments, and, I felt better. So I was pretty blown away by the results, and I decided to become a chiropractor as a result of that experience.
Wow. That's a great story. And it's not an altogether uncommon story in chiropractic. I think a lot of us have something similar like that, and that's what really got us going on the path we're on today. The main reason we wanted to have you on the show, we definitely want to talk about the business things, but what's been in the news recently is the unfortunate, untimely death of Katie May, and that impact it's had on chiropractic as a whole and the questions that patients are coming in with. And you recently were on the Dr. Oz show discussing that situation and the role that chiropractic may have played. So can you tell us about that a little bit? Who were the guests, and how did you fit into that picture?
Sure. I've been in a doctor. That was my 9th appearance in a Dr. Oz show. Prior to that, most of the appearances were, the first chiropractic adjustment on the show, talking about different, modalities, what the Graston technique is, how laser could help, different vitamins you could take for neuropathies, things like that. And how did it happen? I guess because I've been on other, television shows, from the Today Show to the Early Show, to local news. And I think it's just because I'm in Manhattan. That's where a lot of things are being filmed and things are being done. And, when they reach out to you once, it's a string of people and they say, hey, this guy wasn't half that bad. Let's bring him back. And it's about being available. So I guess I'm always make myself available. And the message is the message that kind of what they want to hear, but with a little bit of my spin on it. I'm not on my soap box screaming about subluxation and, being one of these overzealous chiropractors that's, talking how bad vaccination is. I know I have to understand my platform. So I guess that's how it started. And what was your question as far as going about the Katie May? How did that start?
Yeah, who were the guests? So what was the experience like? How did you prepare?
Well, the way I prepared is I reached out to Dr. Jason Deitch, who I'm not sure you're aware of, but he has a service called Amplified.
Okay.
And it's a platform, a social media sharing platform for chiropractors to spread the message online to their Facebook community. So we went to school together, and he's been a colleague of mine. I've always reached out to him when I had, things like this, and he connected me with Dr. Jerry Klum, who was a former Life West president for years. And I believe he's one of the experts when it comes to stroke education. He lectures at Sherman. He lectures all over the world on the topic. So I connected with these two, and we, got the questions in advance. And the guest was going to be let me get this correct. She's definitely an MD, and she worked at the stroke center at Weill Cornell Medical Center here in New York. So she was a neurovascular surgeon. So, going into it, I wasn't sure how the piece was going to go, but once I found out the title, can your chiropractor kill you? That was, shocking. But, what a lot of people don't understand is sensationalism or the sizzle is what gets people to watch the show. And at the end of the day, I mean, you saw the segment, correct?
Yes, I did.
It wasn't that bad. Actually, the takeaway was like, oh, that wasn't that bad of a segment. But it got a lot of eyeballs, and that's, what they wanted. They wanted viewers. I didn't write the title. I had no input to that. But, I helped them, guide them in the direction of, hey, it doesn't really happen. And, the vascular surgeon backed it up, saying, hey, she sees strokes every day for all kinds of reasons. And, it could have been the position that she was in.
Yeah.
So I think overall it was done well.
Well, that's good, that you went on there and were treated fairly, especially with something so emotional, the death of someone, and got a fair shake from them. Do you feel like the audience, do you get a feel for where they were at with the whole thing? Did they seem concerned, or did they seem blaming, or anything like that?
You mean the studio audience?
Yeah, the studio. Do you get any sense of that when you're there?
Honestly, no, I'm not even paying attention. I'm not. There's cameras. It's like a conversation with Dr. Oz. I'm zoning them out. I mean, there's not that many of them. There's like maybe 85 people, and they're there on the big day to see the Dr. Oz show. I don't even think they pay attention, to be quite honest with you.
Well, the sensationalism sells, like you said, and from what I understand, I think it is sweeps week for the ratings.
Well, right. It was sweeps week, and they wait for really good segments because that's how they get their viewership. And it was a segment that the doctors did the day before. I don't know if you're aware of that. That's have you've heard of that? The doctors?
Yeah, I have that. The other show.
Yeah, they did the other segment, Can Your Chiropractor Kill You? And they Skyped in a chiropractor, and he gave his point, and they had a couple doctors on it, but they basically said the same thing: chiropractic safe. And the chiropractor said, "Oh, there's risks with everything," that type of thing. I didn't feel like going that route, because.
Well, for those that may have missed it, what did you present when you were there?
When I spoke to Dr. Klum, one of the things that he said is, hey, there's a possibility there was a fall. We don't know. They had the autopsy report, which they ordered weeks before. Stuart Hoffman from CBS Malpractice ordered the autopsy report. There was a lot of inconsistencies with it, basically saying that, hey, there were bruises on her body, all over the place that shouldn't be there from just a fall. So I think the conclusion we came to is that position that she was in for extended periods of time caused what's called a bow hunter stroke. Okay. And it's a pretty rare stroke, but it's like as if someone is positioning a shot, holding a bow and arrow for too long, that could cause a bilateral arterial dissection. So I felt, that was rare enough that I could mention that. I made it my own, and I said it was likely the result of that. And then, the doctor right away said, well, strokes are fairly common, but not the result of a chiropractor, just by looking up or, being in a yoga class, and she sees them all the time. People die of strokes all the time, not caused by the chiropractor. But, this specific coroner wanted to blame the chiropractor, and that's why it made the news, because it was something that has never been done before. They've always had association or causation, but this was like as a result of.
Yeah, when I first read it, I don't know how he could determine that, but he put it, clear as day in black and white, and kind of alarming, I think.
Right, so that's why everyone jumped on it, like, holy cow, what's going on? We need to inform our public, and it's pretty easy to defend it. Basically, if chiropractors out there want to defend it, my tool that I didn't get out on the show is, hey, look at the malpractice that we pay. I have $3 million worth of malpractice insurance. It's under $2,000. The woman sitting next to me, who was a neurovascular surgeon, for that same exact coverage, I'm almost positive that's over $150,000 a year. And it's because what they do is risky. People die when you do this, but what we do, people don't die. Quite the opposite. They get better, but shit happens sometimes. So that's why we have malpractice.
Well, I have had Dr. Stuart Hoffman on the show before, and I think he's a great resource for stroke information in particular, so I'm glad he had a chance to look over everything related to that. Is there anything else or any other resources you think that chiropractors should check out for stroke, or is he pretty much the go-to guy?
I also accessed the American Chiropractic Association and spoke to the president of the American Chiropractic Association, and they seem to be, they're the largest and the most unified in the profession. And, anytime that there's ever chiropractic mentioned in the media, they're usually the resource or the go-to. Dr. Oz actually read a statement from the American Chiropractic Association after we were done discussing, talking about chiropractors are trained to take full detailed history and recognize signs of strokes. So I think the ACA is a great resource. CBS is a great resource, and Dr. Clum's a great resource.
Well, I want to shift gears completely, and I want to switch and talk to being successful as a chiropractor and in chiropractic. That is, after all, the focus of this show most of the time. And one of the things I think that you are doing well for the profession is representing it well, and that takes great communication skills. So do you have any advice for how us chiropractors who maybe aren't so good at the communication side of things can improve that?
Specifically to patients or in general speaking?
Yeah, in general speaking. I think that maybe if we could convey our message better to our patients, whether that's one-on-one or in a patient talk setting, that I think we're going to be able to do better. And not as a profession, and not everyone can do that well.
Well, that's a tricky one because, I'm myself when I'm with my patients and I don't follow any scripts. I don't follow any practice management protocol. I'm not trying to close them or sell them on big packages of care. I'm giving them choices. And I think patients, really appreciate that. Especially in New York City, people are busy and people could see right through the bullshit, to be quite honest with you. So, a lot of chiropractic management consultants want to have you, sit down with them and, bring their family member in and scare them over an x-ray and, really drive home the subluxation. And that never really worked for me. And that's kind of what I do with the patients. So that works for me, is communicating, hey, you have a choice here. There's different types of chiropractic care that I offer. And I take it away from them a little bit. I say, hey, listen, you could come in a couple times, get better, or we could, correct your problem. But it's going to require a lot of work. It's going to require you to do stuff at home. It's going to cost you more money. If you want to do it, great. But I'm not, twisting your arm. I'm lucky enough to be busy with enough new patients coming in that I don't have to have every patient coming in 3 times a week for 30 visits. And that, that's kind of what has worked for me, is being honest with patients and giving them choices.
Well, I really like that. It sounds like maybe we should start mandating that every chiropractor go practice for a year in New York to learn how to, cut through the bullshit and get to the point.
Right.
Well, one of the things that I'm always curious about is what separates those who are more successful in practice from those who are less successful. Any thoughts on that?
It's hard work. It's getting out there and doing the things that make you feel uncomfortable. I've been doing this for 20 years. I've worked Saturdays. I've, taken phone calls after hours and made special arrangements to go in the office and meet people and treat them and help them out. So you got to put your time in. It doesn't happen overnight. And there's a lot of sweat equity that goes into being busy, not just showing up. You have to stay late and sometimes come in early.
Well, this podcast is all about providing actionable content for our listeners, and I always like to break it down into 2 pieces of advice. So what would you advise the new doctor who has just graduated and not sure what to do to really get things going? What advice do you have for them? And then what advice do you have for maybe the person who's been in practice 4 or 5 years and they're kind of stuck and at a plateau and aren't sure where to go?
Well, that's a great question. Well, if you're just getting out of practice, you got to establish your brand before you even get out of practice. Get your cards, get your phone number. And when you got to get out of the office, because if you're in the office and there's no patients, they don't just, trip into your office. You have to go out and get them. So have lunch at a different restaurant every day. And when you're there, leave an extra tip and leave your card with your name on it, or even introduce yourself. You got to be talkative and talk to people and not be a wallflower. So, if you're not busy in the office, step out and go shopping and give your cards to everyone that you see. And that what brings patients into the office initially. And as far as people that are in practice, I mean, I think it's the same. It's getting out of the office. I mean, people don't come into your office just because. You got to get out and bring them in yourself. And that's worked for me. I've always been able to get out and communicate with people. And if I'm going to the mall, I go to the mall. If I go to the store, everyone knows that I'm a chiropractor. If I'm on the bus, if I'm on the train, everyone knows I'm a chiropractor. I mean, I'm not walking around with my plastic spine anymore like I did when I first started. I mean, that worked for me in the beginning. I'd walk around with a spine. And people are like, what the hell are you doing with a plastic spine? Oh, I'm a chiropractor. Really? Oh, yeah. And we took it from there. I don't do that anymore. But that's something that helped in the beginning with me.
The full-size dry spine keychain, that might be an option.
That might be an option.
Well, I want to take a step back from chiropractic, at least, and talk about the bigger picture of success, and specifically the flip side of success. You know, we learn a lot from our successes, but we can learn even more from things that did not go well and how we overcame those challenges. So do you have a story like that you'd like to share with us?
That's a good question. Yes. As far as advertising is concerned, in 2006 through 2008, I spent tremendous amounts of money advertising, actually in the New York City subway. I mean, I don't know if many of your listeners are on the subway. Just imagine the placards that you have when you're sitting looking up, and the posters that are in around the tunnel. I mean, it was a $20,000 a month commitment for a year. So I spent a little too much money and didn't get the result that I was looking for. So I guess understanding your demographic and understanding your area. So sometimes you could spend too much money and sometimes you could spend not enough. I mean, and marketing is consistency. So if you're going to do something like the train ad, eventually it trickled patients in the door, but they weren't the patients I was looking for. Most people that were getting doctors off the train didn't have insurance, or they were in a car accident, and that's not the demographic I was looking for.
So when you started, advertising again, if you did, what did you do differently?
Well, I was more target to my niche, and, online was just starting. I mean, online is where a majority of our patients come from now, but I made sure that I had a presence on, the Google Maps or on whatever online platform is important at the time, whether it was Yelp and that thing. So I put my money towards that, and that's how patients are finding doctors right now, to be quite honest with you. So if you're not online, you don't exist, and that's the takeaways. You have to get online, and you have to spend some money in building out a website, building out a presence, and also getting on, which they're all free, by the way, getting on Google Maps or, putting your business on Yelp or whatever you need to do. That's how people are searching for chiropractors these days. And another takeaway that you might not even know about is, have you heard of ZocDoc?
I have heard of it. Is it a directory of docs?
It's basically, it's a directory of docs, but not just chiropractors. It's everything from dentists to primary care physicians to rheumatologists to hospitals, and they're tremendous. They're nationwide. I don't think they're they're only in the U.S., but the millennial people that are looking for doctors are going straight to ZocDoc, and it's about to become a public company. So once it becomes public, I mean, the money they spend is tremendous. So, we pull in anywhere from 5 to 12 patients a week from it.
Wow.
Maybe more. Sometimes it's 3 a day. So it's been awesome for us, and we really don't have to lift a finger. The patients go online and they schedule for an appointment with a chiropractor in their area, and they just show up with their paperwork filled out. So, I mean, that's almost, it's done for you. So if you're it's $3,000 a year, which, for me is nothing. But if you're just getting out of practice, it might be a little bit tough. But that's what brings patients in the door.
Wow, that's great. I interview a lot of folks, and it's the first time that anyone's ever mentioned that. So we will definitely link to that in our show notes when this episode goes live.
I mean, yeah, if you're in practice and you're not on ZocDoc, you just go and look and see. You'll find someone else down the street that is, and they're getting appointments booked. I mean, I look at my stats every month. I mean, we're getting 64 new patients a month from being on ZocDoc for $3,000 a year, and that's every month. So I don't get anything out of it to tell you to go to ZocDoc. I'm not getting kickbacks. I don't work for them. It's a pretty awesome service.
Well, who are your personal heroes?
That's a good question. I think Anthony Robbins helped me out a lot in the beginning for, getting out of school and getting to practice and getting motivated enough to, walk the walk and talk the talk. So that would be one of them.
Did you go to any of his seminars or just read his books, or how'd you?
I just read his books and listened to his cassettes when cassettes were still around.
Yeah, he has got a lot of great information out there, and we have reviewed his Netflix documentary, and a lot of folks have mentioned him as one of the people they look up to. So definitely someone to pay attention to if you aren't already.
Yeah, he's the guru. Well, he's not your guru. According to Netflix, he's not your guru.
Right,
he doesn't want to be your guru anymore.
Well, he makes a pretty good living being a guru, but
oh yeah.
Well, a lot of the folks that come on the show that I talk to have a daily routine and affirmation rituals that they do every day that really help them be successful. Is that anything that you do?
Nope, it's not. I mean, I don't do affirmations. I just get up early and, get my day started.
Well, that sounds simple. I like it. And, when all else fails, just get up and go.
Exactly. Just get up and do it.
Well, we are coming towards the end of this interview, but before we let you go, we do have a couple of final thoughts. Do you have a favorite book you'd like to recommend? It can be business, chiropractic, or anything.
I like The Art of War. I'm sure I'm not the first person that's mentioned that.
Yep. A couple of people have mentioned that one. There's another one that they talk about called The War of Art. Which is a different spin.
That one I have not read. Yeah, that one I have not read. I need to pick that up.
Well, we'll link to that in the show notes as well. Now, have you ever received, I'm sure you have, business advice? And if so, what's the best business advice you've ever received?
That's a good question. Business advice. Yeah, from my accountant when I first started. He said, put everything through the business. That's one of the advantages of having a business, and everything's a business expense. So that's one of the advantages of being self-employed is everything goes through the business and it's a business expense.
Yeah, that's funny you say that. I was talking to a student who was getting ready to move, I think, to North Dakota, and he was real bummed. He says, they have one of the highest income tax rates that there are out there, and I'm going to be self-employed. And I said, I don't think you understand how this works because you're going to control how much you make according, and the government's going to look at that and say, oh, okay, if that's what it is, and these are your expenses, then that's what you make. But yeah, it's an important thing to realize. Not everyone can do that.
Not everyone can do that. And having your own business, you're like, hey, I'm going to go out to eat every night. That's your advertising is you're talking to the waitress, or I'm going to buy a uniform. That's the clothes you wear every day. I'm going to drive a car. I mean, I'm not an accountant, so, don't take my advice, but, speak to your accountant, because if you set up a PLLC or whatever it is, you can run everything through the business and, decrease your overhead, decrease your tax expenditure and pay less in taxes.
Well, normally this is the part where I ask, about you and what's the best way to contact you for people to find out more about what you do. Do you want people to contact you? If not, you don't have to say anything.
Well, I have an Instagram account.
Okay.
It's really easy to find me, Dr. Shoshany on Instagram. I also have a Gmail. Are people using Plus these days or not really?
I don't know. I can't get a good feel on it. Some are, some aren't, but I don't think anyone really understands it.
Same. I think Instagram and Facebook are both awesome ways to get a hold of somebody. I mean, that's how I reach out to Jason Deitch when I needed him. That's how, Dr. Steven Shoshany on Facebook and Dr. Steven Shoshany on Instagram. It's great when people start following one another, there's a synergy. Sometimes you find referrals. Hey, there's a chiropractor in Florida. Go here. Patients move all the time, and it's good to have a network of chiropractors that you could trust and do similar techniques, and you've actually, know of them.
Well, we will link to all of your Facebook connections and you said Instagram, and provide your email contact as well in our show notes page. Dr. Steven Shoshany, thank you so much for being on the show and for representing our profession so well on Dr. Oz on multiple occasions, and I wish you nothing but the best down the line.
All right, great. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Chiro Business Mojo podcast at www.chirobusinessmojo.com.